Adaeze Okafor, will you marry me?
Yes.
She said yes. With tears in her eyes and doubt in her chest and a phone in her bag that held 47 unread messages from a mechanic in Enugu who had never lied to her, not once, not even by accident. The ring was beautiful. It caught the light the way expensive things always do, from every angle, in every direction, as if it had been designed to dazzle, to distract, to make you forget to ask the questions that mattered. She lay in bed that night, turning it under the lamplight, and she thought about how strange it was that something so beautiful could feel so heavy. Like Emeka's love, it looked stunning, but it weighed her down. Last time, we left Adaeze standing at the edge of a choice she didn't fully understand yet. We left her at a Victoria Island lounge, watching a man in a midnight blue Tom Ford suit walk toward her with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Today, we watch what happened when that man got close. We watch the seduction of loud love. We watch the slow, beautiful, devastating unraveling of a woman who deserved better. And we watch, in the margins of all of it, a quiet man in Enugu who kept sending texts she saved but never answered the way she should have. Emeka was everything Obinna was not. He was loud. He was magnetic. He wore Tom Ford suits and drove a white G-Wagon and spoke like every sentence was a TED Talk. He was the CEO of a digital marketing agency that handled campaigns for banks and telecoms. He was 31, successful, and he wanted Adaeze the way men like Emeka want things, completely, immediately, and with the absolute certainty that he would get what he wanted. He walked up to
You're
her
the
at the
most
bar that
interesting
night
person in
and
this room,
said she was the most
and you're
interesting
standing in the
person
corner
in the
like you're
room,
hiding.
and she was standing in the corner like she was hiding. She said maybe she was.
Yeah.
He asked from what? She said, from men who opened with lines like that. He laughed genuinely and said he would try again. He introduced himself. He
Everyone
said he
calls me
produced
Emeka. I
noise for a
produce
living,
noise
but right
for a
now
living, but
he
right
would
now
rather
I would rather
listen.
listen.
He asked about her work. He asked about her ambitions. He asked about her family. He listened, really listened, or at least performed listening so well that the difference was invisible. At the end of the night, he didn't ask for her number. He gave her his card and told her to call only if she wanted to. No pressure. But he hoped she would. She called. Of course she called. Because Emeka was the opposite of silence. And after a year in Lagos, lonely, exhausted, drowning in work, Adaeze was starving for noise, for attention, for someone who looked at her like she was the only woman in a city of 20 million. And Emeka looked at her exactly like that, every single time, at least in the beginning. The first month was extraordinary. Daily calls, morning texts that arrived before her alarm, flowers delivered to her
Hello?
office on a
Oh my
Tuesday
God, are these
for
for
no
me?
reason except
They're
that he was
beautiful.
thinking of her. Dinner reservations at restaurants she had walked past and never thought she would enter. He remembered everything she told him, her favorite color, the name of her childhood dog, the professor who had believed in her at university. He made her feel seen. He made her feel chosen. He made her feel like the protagonist of her own life after years of feeling like a supporting character. And somewhere in Enugu, a man sent a text that said, "Hope you're eating well. Lagos traffic is bad. Check your coolant."
How was your meeting today?
She read it. She smiled. She put her phone down and went back to Emeka's call. The problem with men like Emeka is not that they don't mean it. It's that they mean it intensely but briefly, like a firework, beautiful, loud, impossible to ignore, and then darkness. The pattern revealed itself slowly, the way patterns always do, not in a single dramatic moment, but in the accumulation of small things that you keep forgiving because each one, individually, seems forgivable. Week 1, daily calls, morning texts, flowers on a Tuesday. Week 5, calls every other day, texts by afternoon instead of morning. Week 12, calls twice a week, promises to call later that never materialized. Week 20, a week of silence, then a grand gesture so overwhelming that it reset the clock and made her forget the silence had happened. She kept forgiving it because when Emeka showed up, he showed up like a storm. Grand gestures, expensive gifts, words so beautiful they felt like poetry. He once rented an entire rooftop restaurant for her birthday and had a violinist play while he told her she was the best thing that had ever happened to him.
I rented this whole space just for you, Adaeze.
Oh, wow, really, Emeka?
Yes, I did.
She cried that night, not from happiness, though she told herself it was happiness. She cried because somewhere in the back of her mind, a quiet voice whispered, "This is performance, not love." She ignored the voice. She had gotten very good at ignoring that voice. Meanwhile, Obina's texts continued, monthly, consistent, unspectacular. "Your mother is fine. I checked on her. Rainy season starting. Make sure your wipers are good." She read them. She saved them. She never told Emeka about Obina, not because she was hiding him, but because she couldn't explain him. How do you explain a man who loves you in the language of timing belts and brake pads? How do you explain a man whose love doesn't perform, doesn't announce itself, doesn't ask for anything, but simply persists, month after month, like a heartbeat? The first time Adaeze caught Emeka in a lie, it wasn't about another woman. It was about time. He said he was in a meeting. She called his office. His assistant said he had left at 3. It was 9 o'clock at night. 6 hours unaccounted for. When she confronted him, his response was a masterclass in deflection. He accused her of checking up on him like a detective. He said he couldn't account for every minute of his day because he was building an empire.
Emeka, I called your office and they said you left since 3.
Yeah, the meeting was outside the office.
He stepped close.
Ada,
He took her
you know I
hands.
won't lie to you, right?
He said he was right there, that he loved her, that she knew that. And then
All
he
right,
said
it's
the
fine,
sentence
Emeka.
that would haunt her for years. "Don't let your insecurity ruin what we have." And there it was, the weapon disguised as tenderness, a sentence that placed the blame for his absence on her anxiety, a sentence that turned his lie into her problem. She stayed because she loved him, because she was afraid, because the alternative, admitting that she had chosen wrong, was more painful than the lie. The second lie was about money, a business trip to Dubai that was supposedly fully covered by a client. She found a receipt in his jacket, 2 tickets, business class. She held the receipt for a long time. She put it back. She washed the jacket. She never asked about the second ticket because she was afraid of the answer. The third lie was about a woman named Yemi, a colleague, whose name appeared on his phone at midnight, whose Instagram he liked with religious devotion, whose perfume Adaeze smelled on his shirt once, just once, and then never again, because Emeka started doing his own laundry after that. She noticed. She said nothing. She told herself she was imagining things. She had gotten very good at telling herself things. But here is what truly broke Adaeze. It wasn't the lies. People lie. People are weak and selfish and afraid, and they lie. What broke her was the aftermath of each lie, the grand gesture that followed. After the first lie, a diamond bracelet. After the second lie, a weekend in Cape Town. After the third lie, a proposal. Yes, Emeka proposed, on one knee in the middle of a restaurant, with a ring that cost more than Adaeze's annual salary, and an audience of strangers who clapped and cheered and recorded it for social media. And Adaeze, exhausted, confused, desperate to believe that love could be this beautiful if she just tried harder, said yes. She said yes with tears in her eyes and doubt in her chest, and a phone in her bag that held 47 unread messages from a mechanic in Enugu who had never lied to her, not once, not even by accident. Have you ever stayed in something you knew was wrong because leaving felt more frightening than staying? Have you ever confused a grand gesture for love? Tell me in the comments. Because what Adaeze finds 4 days before the wedding, it will change everything. 3 weeks after the engagement, Adaeze called Obinna. It was 11:47 at night. She hadn't planned to call. She was lying in bed, staring at the ring, turning it under the lamplight, watching how it caught the light from every angle. Beautiful, expensive, heavy. She dialed before she could stop herself. He answered on the second ring, his voice groggy and then immediately alert. His first words were, "Ada, is everything okay? Is it the car?" She laughed sadly and said it was always the car with him. He said it was midnight and she didn't call at midnight unless something was wrong. She paused for a long time and then said, "I'm getting married." The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds. But those 3 seconds held 7 years of waiting, 7 years of quiet love, 7 years of timing belts and monthly texts and a chair in the warm spot. She said his name. He said he heard her. She asked if he was going to say something. He asked whether she wanted him to say something, or whether she wanted him to say a specific thing. Her voice cracked. She said she wanted him to say what he had never said for 7 years. She wanted him to say it now, just once. He paused for a long time. She could hear him breathing. She could hear him sitting up in bed. She could hear the weight of 7 years pressing on his chest. And then he said, "Ada, if I say it, what changes?" She said, "Everything." He said, "No, it changes nothing. You said yes to this man. You chose him. And if I tell you now, tonight, what I've carried since the first time you brought jollof rice to my workshop, if I say those words now, then I become the man who tried to break your engagement. I become the man who used your doubt to steal you. I won't be that man." She was crying now. She asked, what if she was making a mistake? He said, "Then you will know. Not because I told you, because you will know. And when you know, Ada, you call me. Not to hear what I feel, to hear what you already know." She said, "That wasn't fair." He said, "I know." And then he said, "Check your engine oil before the drive to the venue. Lagos roads are rough on old engines." And he hung up. Adaeze sat there in the dark, holding a dead phone and a diamond ring. And for the first time in her life, she understood the difference between a man who loved her loudly and a man who loved her truly. The loud one gave her a ring. The quiet one gave her a choice. The wedding preparations began like a machine. 500 guests, a cathedral in Lekki, a reception at a 5-star hotel, asoebi in coral and gold, a 12-tier cake. Adaeze moved through it all like a passenger in her own life. She smiled at dress fittings. She nodded at menu
Adaeze,
tastings.
what do you think about this?
She held Emeka's hand at the pre-wedding photo shoot. And every night she opened her phone, scrolled to her messages with Obinna, and reread every single one. Hope you're eating well. Your mother is fine. Check your coolant. Love letters, written in the language of maintenance. And she had been too blind, too deaf, too hungry for noise to hear them. 4 days before the wedding, she found the evidence she had been avoiding. It was Emeka's iPad, left open on the kitchen counter. A conversation with Yemi. Hotel reservations for 2 weeks after the honeymoon. Messages that made her stomach turn. Not because they were explicit, though they were, but because the tenderness in his words to Yemi was identical to the tenderness he used with Adaeze. Copy and paste love. The same lines, the same pet names, the same "you are the best thing that has ever happened to me." She stood at the kitchen counter for a long time. The tea kettle began to whistle. She didn't move. She read the messages from the beginning. The messages went back 2 years, the entire duration of their relationship. Every "I love you," every grand gesture, all of it had been shared, split down the middle, half for Adaeze, half for Yemi. And both women probably thought they had the whole thing. She put the iPad down. She turned off the kettle. She stood in the kitchen in the morning light, 4 days before her wedding, and she felt something she had not expected to feel. Not rage, not tears, clarity. The kind of clarity that only comes when the last piece of a puzzle falls into place and the picture is finally, undeniably complete. She had known. Some part of her had always known. The quiet voice she had been ignoring for 2 years had been right every single time. Emeka walked in at 8:45, dressed for a meeting, phone pressed to his ear, mid-laugh. He saw Adaeze's face. He saw the iPad. In the span of 1 second, his expression moved through surprise, calculation, and the decision to perform. He said, "Baby, let me explain." She asked how long. Her voice was quiet, not trembling, not breaking. Quiet in the way that Obinna was quiet, with the weight of someone who has decided that words are only worth speaking when they are true. He dropped the act. His voice went flat. 2 years. She walked to the counter. She picked up the ring. She set it down next to the iPad. She said, "This is yours." He begged. He said he would end it. He said he loved her. She stood at the door, turned back one last time and said, "You don't love me, Emeka. You love the idea of having me.
You love the idea of having me.
There is a difference.
There is a difference.
And it took me too long to see it." She walked out. She went to her apartment. She packed 1 bag. She got into the old Camry and she drove. Through Lagos traffic that thinned as midnight passed. Through Ore, where the road narrowed and the darkness deepened. Through Benin, where a fuel attendant asked if she was okay because her eyes looked like they had been carrying something heavy. She said she was fine. She wasn't fine, but she was moving. She drove through Asaba, across the Niger Bridge as the sky began to lighten. She drove into Onitsha, where the morning market was already stirring. She drove to Enugu. She didn't drive to her mother's house. She didn't drive to her old apartment. She drove to a mechanic workshop on Agbani Road. She parked. She turned off the engine and she sat there. It was 6:12 in the morning. The workshop didn't open until 7. She waited. At exactly 6:58, a man walked around the corner carrying a small bag, bread and a sachet of soya milk, his breakfast, unchanged for 7 years. He saw the Camry first. He recognized it immediately. He would recognize that car anywhere. He slowed. He looked at the car. And then he looked at the woman sitting behind the wheel, still in the clothes she had worn at Emeka's apartment, her bag in the back seat, her eyes swollen, her hands still on the steering wheel, and on her left hand, the ring finger, nothing. Just skin. Just the faint indentation where something heavy had been and was no longer. Obinna stood on the pavement outside his workshop, holding his bread and soya milk, looking at the woman he had loved for 7 years through the windshield of the car he had kept alive for her. And what happened next is the moment this entire story has been building toward. 7 years, 1 workshop, 2 plates of jollof rice, and a love so quiet that she almost missed it. Part 3, the finale, is here. Subscribe now, turn on that notification bell, because the ending of this story is going to change the way you think about love forever.